Hello guys, Crispy here, welcome back to another video. In this part, my friends, I'm going to be testing the legendary GeForce GTX 1080 Ti in the Elder Stutters IV Oblivion Remastered. This one is a gigabyte gaming version of the card. I am running it with the latest Nvidia drivers and I'm not manually overclocking it. You can see all of its specs right here in Tech PowerUp's GPU Z. It has 11 gigabytes of GDDR5X memory, which is very nice. And over on the left, I am pairing it with the i5-12600 KFC CPU. It's KF CPU, but KFC, you know, it's funny. And over on the memory tab, we're using 32 gigabytes of RAM DDR5. Let's get into it, shall we? Okay, first up, let's go over the settings here. I'm starting at 1080p resolution, utilizing the high settings preset. Yeah, guys, hardware ray tracing is turned off, of course, but we're using software ray tracing on low. And I will also try it with the Lumen Begone mod, so we can actually disable the ray tracing altogether. Finally, I'm using the FSR anti-aliasing here, because the other options are total crap, and so is this one, but it's the best out of all of them, I guess. I tried using FSR native AA instead, but this enables frame generation with this card. I don't know, it's grayed out, I can't really change it. And I also tried the XeSS native AA stuff right here, which was a lot more intensive than TSR. So TSR seems to be the best balance in terms of anti-aliasing for the GTX 1080 Ti. And if you disable it, by the way, it's a little bit better in terms of FPS, like 1 or 2 frames higher, but it looks like total shimmery crap, basically. It's really bad, alright? So we need the anti-aliasing here in this title for it to look semi-decent. Now, GTX 1080 Ti is actually performing quite decently here, guys. Obviously, we see stutters here and there. I just started counting the FPS, and the 1% lows are already crap because of a traversal stutter that happened, but it also is getting around 40 frames per second. I'm curious, though, that, yes, I was doubting myself a little bit that this was at 100% scaling because this looks really bad. Again, very soft, but it is indeed at 100% resolution scaling. All right. And these FPS actually look to be pretty decent for a GTX 1080 Ti. Again, this is a GTX card, not meant for ray tracing whatsoever. And this game is a UE5 title with forced Lumen enabled that we can disable in the config files or with the mod that I will test later. So I thought it would do a worse job here with Lumen enabled, even though it's software ray tracing set to low. So 1080 Ti, not too bad, right? It is a playable experience. Anyway, it seems like since we are utilizing the... Oh my god, that's a lot of ghosting there. Look at that, guys. Look at the sword. I can see duplicated swords like 3 or 4 times. Jesus. This game, man, and the vegetation is just so atrociously bad in terms of the noise and the softness and the blurriness. It's all a blur, my friends. Oh boy, it kind of looks like a tech demo in some ways for UE5 and an unfinished engine, maybe. Yeah. You know what? Instead of calling it the Unreal Engine 5, maybe we should start calling it the Unfinished Engine 5. Yes? Oh boy, or the very problematic Engine 5. Yes, that's it, my friends. Anyway, around here, yeah, I was a little bit scared about this, dropping into like the low 30s and maybe high 20s, but it doesn't seem to be dropping into the 20s, so you could lock it to like 30 FPS and achieve that 30 FPS experience all of the time. And again, that is very impressive considering this is using software ray tracing and we're on a GTX card. 1080 Ti. Okay, it's probably the best GTX card there is, aside from Titan XP, but it's still a GTX card. Now, if you showed me footage of this game back when this GPU released in 2017 and told me that this GPU would be rendering these graphics, super blurry ones, you know... with 30 FPS at 1080p resolution, I would not believe you, but here we are, it's 2025, games are unoptimized, they run like crap, it's stuttery messes all of the time, well, not all of the time, but in 90% of games, it is a stutter fest, and, well, the graphics do not justify the poor performance, for sure. But hey, if you were wanting to play this game with a 1080 Ti, it seems like even without the mods, you can play it. This is high settings after all, and it was a semi-playable experience in my opinion. Now let's go ahead and try FSR native AA on 69% sharpness. Nice. Now again, this enables frame generation by default. I will also enable the reflex over here, Nvidia reflex, and since the baseline FPS were around 30 frames per second, this is not a very good experience here. By the way, you can see the ghosting there around the sword, instantly noticeable. If I do this, now I can see like 7 blades. Jeez, instead of like 4 blades with TSR. So there is more ghosting with FSR native AA. It's not coming from the frame generation, by the way. It's actually the FSR implementation, and it's terrible. I like the ghosting in this game, just kills it for me. Now, what kills it the most right now, even though we're seeing 50 FPS and 60 FPS at times, and it's actually a very smooth looking experience on YouTube for you guys, the input lag is atrocious. I would not be happy with this experience. Maybe, oh my god, what the hell? I saw a lot of ghosting there when switching to third person. I don't know what it was. Maybe the shield or something. Whew. That was... Okay, anyway, it's fixed now. But yeah, basically what these FPS mean is that the baseline FPS with the frame generation enabled on top of it are around half of what we're seeing here. And whenever it gets like 50-ish frames per second, that means the baseline is 20s, like 25, 26. And in that case, input lag is going to be around the same as 20 FPS. And that is absolutely awful. So just because of that, I think this is a pretty bad experience, guys, with the frame generation enabled and FSR 3. It is also more ghostly looking than with DSR. So I would not really utilize FSR native AA here. What about quality FSR with the frame generation enabled? That bumps up our baseline FPS into the like 30s and 40s sometimes when it reaches like 80 frames per second there with FG. And it is a much more responsive experience, all right? It's a big difference actually, and this I think would actually be quite playable. You know, you still have a ton of input lag there, and it is pretty bad in terms of that, but it's acceptable at the very least. It's doable, in my opinion. I can play like this, but the biggest issue is now we're running this with a 720p image internally and being upscaled to 1080p resolution because FSR 3 is on quality. And that means Blurfest amplified. Alright, it was already super blurry before, and now with FSR 3 on quality, it is even blurrier. It literally looks like some other titles do with FSR on performance. I mean, 1080 Ti at the very least can provide you good FPS. As you can see, we're still on high settings, right? We can still drop the settings down to medium, down to low. I think high settings provide the best visuals, in my opinion. But yeah, we do have some interesting features here on the graphics fidelity front. The only thing is, the blurriness just kills it all for me. But anyway, that's it for FSR. We could also try some XeSS. Again, with the native AA stuff, it is more intensive than the TSR. Over here, it's a little bit less intensive, I guess. It's also really soft, as you can see. It doesn't look native whatsoever, but it is native resolution right now. If you're watching this on your phone or something like that, it might look good because it's a small screen and stuff, but trust me guys, I'm using a 1080p 27-incher now, and it's so soft. It's like probably the softest game ever. Again, not only this year, probably ever. What a shame, and it drops into the 20s, as you can see, with XeSS native AA, so that's not a good experience whatsoever. Let's try it on quality though, see if it looks better. Yeah, not really. So I guess XeSS is a bit out of the question, guys. Maybe ultra quality is going to be better. 39 FPS, okay. Now, the good thing about XeSS is that it doesn't have any ghosting. It still has a halo effect and some noise being introduced, especially around vegetation and around the sword there while you're moving. But it doesn't have ghosting at the very least. It still has a lot more artifacts though. So FSR makes it a little bit softer. This makes it weirder. It just looks like it has more artifacts, basically, aside from the ghosting part. Now I'm gonna go back to TSR here, and I want to play... You know what, let's disable Lumen. I was gonna do like medium and low with Lumen enabled, but I think if you have a GTX GPU, even a GTX 1080 Ti, using the Lumen mod will change the experience quite a lot, and it still looks decent, so let's just do that. The mod that I'm using here is going to be the Lumen Begone, disable RT for better performance, and you just download it and follow these instructions right here. Basically, all you need to do is go to your Documents folder, My Games, Oblivion Remastered, Saved, Config, Windows, and paste this, or move this into this folder right here, replace it, and now Lumen will be gone. It's really simple. In terms of the graphics options, by the way, the menu here, it stays the same. It still says Lumen hardware ray tracing off and Lumen software ray tracing quality and stuff, but it's now completely disabled. And here we are, instead of getting... I don't remember what kind of FPS we were getting. But now this is definitely working. Even though we have the screen space reflections off, they're still showing up with the Lumen mod. So that's a little bit of a shame, because you can see the sword there being reflected. It's really weird. See, this is why I think the developers just didn't care whatsoever about many things about this game, you know? But hey, here we are. Instead of getting, I think it was like 30 to 40 FPS most of the time, right? Previously, with high settings, Lumen enabled. Now we're getting 40 plus, 40 to 50 frames per second. It might actually drop down into the 30s sometimes. Let's check it out here in this little pathway. And yeah, it's not dropping, okay. Without the Lumen stuff, that's not intensive. With Lumen, that pathway is actually a little bit intensive and dropping things down. But yeah, guys, 50 FPS average almost. Not too bad. That means that it will never drop from 30 frames per second. I mean, previously it wasn't really dropping from 30 FPS, but it was much closer to that 30 FPS mark, right? And here it's a bit more stable. The frame time is not as smooth, though. That's a shame. But it is a little bit more stable in terms of that average frame rate. Resist arrest, yeah, don't care. I just want to grab Roach here and get out of here. Let's go, Roach. Oh boy, this guy also came off his horse to kill us for some reason. Why aren't you pursuing me by horse? I feel like that would be a lot smarter, right? Reflections on the water do disappear once again. Yeah, I can show it to you here. All of the reflections disappear when off the screen, so Lumen is definitely not working anymore. And the overall game looks a little bit more bluish, you know? It has a bluer tint over everything whenever you disable the Lumen stuff. You can also compare it in the actual Lumen mod page in Nexus Mods. The guy actually has Lumen on and off images there, so you can compare. And you lose a lot of that global illumination and stuff, looking a little bit better than this. But still, if you're not comparing things side by side, this is totally acceptable without Lumen enabled. And it runs just a little bit better, once again. Not too bad. There was a much bigger difference with the GTX 1650 though. But maybe on low settings or lower settings, the 1080 Ti will shine a little bit more. It's still not a good baseline to enable frame generation on top of. So if we do that with the FSR FG, because it's the only way we can use frame generation in this title right now. Yeah, FSR, I'm going to use native AA, FG enabled by default, can't disable that. We still get those 50s and 60s. So it's pretty similar in terms of the response time. Oh my god, what the hell. Ah, the stutters, man. I guess now it's acceptable if you are playing with a controller, though. Because that way you can notice the input lag a bit less. At least that's my experience with controllers and playing with frame generation and stuff like that. It feels a heck of a lot better in terms of latency. So yeah, maybe just grab a controller, kick back, relax with 60-something FPS here in Oblivion and high settings without Lumen, and the 1080 Ti can still impress. It can still provide a good experience outside of the stutters, but again, that's not due to the GPU itself. Anyway, let's go inside of the city here, check it out for a little bit. Getting 60s, it's pretty much the same thing. dropping into the 50s at times. Really dark right now. So your best bet if you want to utilize frame generation is still using the FSR 3 set to quality, because this way it bumps things from 60 FPS to 90 FPS or close to it, and it's much more responsive, much more doable. Unfortunately though, again, it gets much more soft at the same time. But hey, if all you care about is a higher refresh rate experience, smoother gameplay basically, and you don't care about the graphics too much, this is a way to play the game. Anyway, let's go back to TSR, and this time around I'm gonna lower it down to medium settings. Let's check it out here, see how many frames we can gain. Ooh, 60 FPS, so that is quite a big difference now, because the resolution scale got bumped down to 71%. Okay. Let's bump it up now to 100% again. No lumen, guys, medium settings, and we're getting 40s. But I will actually restart the game completely to make sure that everything applies properly. And now we're in the 50s in this initial part of the game. We lost all of the reflections. Now the screen space reflections are gone, the ray trace reflections are gone, and we got just some very blue water over here that looks totally unrealistic and kind of bad actually, but it is what it is. I'm gonna start counting the FPS here. Medium settings, native 1080p, 45. So we gain another like 5 frames per second, I guess, over what we saw on high. Maybe not even that, right? Because I remember it touching 50 FPS sometimes around this area. Okay, over here there is quite a bit of a difference there, touching 60 FPS now. That's the first time that we've touched 60 FPS in this video at native resolution. So, alright, there is definitely some improvement there. Over here, lots of noise in these vegetations, these leaves of grass and other things. Yes, goodbye, sir. Thank you. What else is around here, actually? I haven't really taken a look or paid too much attention to these areas, you know, looting things and stuff. Mainly because if you try to loot something, you get a major stutter, so, yeah. It lowers our 1% lows by a little bit. Not too much there, but I've seen like half a second stutters just by opening a chest sometimes. Goodbye, sir. Goodbye.
No need to get violent.
No. What? Are you
It's all over.
Okay, so he actually mounted the horse to come get me for some reason. That's weird. That's weird. Okay, let's go. Yes, notice that I am not really mentioning anything about the weird animations and the bugs because, well, that's just Oblivion. It's how it is. It's a feature. It's Bethesda, okay? Bethesda introduces bugs as features, so the game's like that because it's more immersive like that, and it's better like that. Alright? I also find it interesting that a lot of you told me that that bug was there 20 years ago in this game, and it's still there. So, you know, I can actually forgive them for that, because it's funny, right? It's very funny. Let's keep on going here, in this direction. Get to that forest area again. You know what the definition of insanity is? Doing the same thing over and over again. Words from Vaz from Far Cry 3. And I feel like maybe I'm insane because I'm doing the same thing over and over again this time around here in Oblivion with different settings. Oh boy. Anyway, 30s. Sometimes it still drops into the 30s even on medium settings. A bit more stable though, both in terms of the average and the 1% lows. It's not as stuttery as it was with high settings. Anyway, I'm gonna stop it right there, guys. And what should we try? These are actually not too bad baseline FPS for us to enable the upscaling here, FSR and Frame Generation, which comes enabled by default with the FSR stuff. So I'm actually gonna do this. See how it is way sharper instantly just because we're using the FSR native AA over here. It's a shame that it ghosts so much, but yeah, I would love to see FSR native AA being independent from FSR Frame Generation. They did this with an update, guys. Let me know if it's happening to you as well. Anyway, 70s, upper 60s at times, 69, you know, that's not too bad actually in terms of input lag. Now it's starting to get into the playable zone to where I don't really care as much in terms of the input lag in this title. So that's not too bad. Actually feels alright to me. Let's go inside of that city area, actually. You know what? I was sick of the rainy weather, so I just loaded another save file that I had here. Getting 70s inside of the city area of the game. Again, the water is ridiculously low quality now for medium settings. And yes, we do have the Lumen stuff disabled, but it would also look like that on medium settings with Lumen enabled, so... yeah, not great, right? The look of the water is definitely not great on medium settings, at least. It should look a little bit better, in my opinion. But yeah, you're getting like 70s, 80s most of the time. Now, let's disable that. And I guess, what should we do next? Low settings, I think? Yeah, the low settings also turned the resolution scale to 50%. All right, we don't want that. We want it on 100%, so it's true native 1080p resolution. I'm going to go ahead and exit the game again, restart to make sure it fully applies. And here we go. We're getting 50s and 60s, finally achieving 60 FPS consistently-ish. It still drops quite a bit sometimes, but now if I start counting the FPS, the average should be right around 60 FPS, I think. But again, now we got some major pop-in issues, as you can see there, with the grass and the shadows and so on. It looks really bad, actually. The textures as well. We could increase the textures, of course, and keep it on like high or even ultra textures if you want to. It's going to achieve the same FPS with a slightly better look, of course. But yeah, the main issue that I have here with the low settings is the pop-in is way too big. It's way too much. It's very playable performance, you know, 69 average right there. It's super nice. Dropped to 68 now. But yeah, it's good in terms of smoothness and stability. There's some micro stuttering there. You can see the frame time graph's not completely flat, unfortunately. But I think with the frame generation stuff enabled, it will become pretty good. But yeah, I think the medium settings with FSR frame generation enabled and FSR native AA at the same time were looking better, a lot better, and it was still a smooth experience all of the time pretty much, so that's what I would go with. But let's see how much we can bump that average FPS by the use of frame generation with FSR native AA. Instantly a lot sharper once again, and it's getting 90s. Frame time graph is also flatter, no more micro stuttering, so from now on we will only see the traversal stuttering from the game itself. Yeah, not too bad, touching 100 FPS, so it's now a smooth experience. And if you really wanted the smoothest experience that you can have with the best clarity that you can have as well, this is it. Low settings probably for you. But again, since this is a single-player title, it doesn't really require super fast reactions and stuff like that. And you can get by with a little bit of added input lag, you know. At least I could. I feel like the medium setting is definitely the way to go with FSR native AA plus frame generation once again. But if you disagree with me and you prefer the low settings, you are wrong. I'm kidding. It's totally fine. It's totally fine. Now inside of the city area, getting 90s here. A little bit of ghosting here and there. Once again, not going anywhere, obviously. But yeah, this is pretty good. Let's just stand over here and look back. It gets really intensive in this particular scenario, but it is still pretty good. Okay, so the next thing I want to try is the 1440p resolution here with the medium settings. I bumped it up to medium because, again, low was not good looking whatsoever, so I wouldn't really do that. Let's go. We're back to native res without frame generation using TSR. And 30 FPS, guys. Ooh, it is definitely going to drop into the 20s sometimes. Not too terrible in terms of stability. It's 9 to 40s for some reason. What? Was it just loading? No, definitely not. It's already back into the low 30s. Hello, Imp. Goodbye, Imp. Let's go. Start counting our FPS here. Sometimes it's actually really good with 40 FPS. Other times, not so much with the low 30s. I guess, yeah, going over that is not really intensive without the Lumen enabled. So let's go in this direction. Actually, you know what, guys? Let's just go to the city again. There we go. So in this area, oof, definitely more intensive, as you can see. 30s. Not liking that too much. I think it's going to drop, guys. inevitably into the 20s. It's not too terrible though, because if it gets 30 plus most of the time, that means that the average will be above 30, and that means that a little bit of an overclock on the GPU, which I am not doing here with this model, it will achieve a little bit higher FPS, like 10% faster frames per second, and that is enough to put it at 30 plus all of the time, because it's only dropping to like 28, and 10% is around 3 FPS with these frame rates, so yeah. But what to do about those little drops into the 20s? Well, enabling FSR native AEA is not going to be a good experience. I'm also going to enable Reflex this time, because even with Reflex enabled, the baseline FPS were so low that there is a heck of a lot of input lag at the moment. I mean, we're getting input lags of half the FPS that we're getting, so that means input lags of 20 to 25 frames per second. What is it? It's really bad. But what about quality FSR? Since we're at 1440p, that might not look as bad as it did at 1080p. And that is the case. However, there's still a lot of blurriness. And, like, look at this. Lots of noise just by walking here. Awful. It's awful. And those trees are blinking as well as we walk. Anyway, this is actually doable whenever the FPS are above like 70 frames with the frame generation. So if you're at 1440p, play like this, I guess. It's not a bad experience anymore. There's a lot of ghosting though, but not too bad. It's going to be far from other games with 1440p resolution and even with FSR quality, okay, in terms of visuals. So keep that in mind. But hey, it is playable, and it's going to be even more playable in third person and with a controller once again. So if you are at 1440p resolution, you probably care a lot about the visual fidelity, so I don't think you would utilize low settings, I think. However, I'm still going to try that out very quickly, alright? But yeah, medium settings is working fine-ish with the quality FSR stuff plus frame generation. Dude, there is such a big difference. Everything becomes blue with low settings coming from medium. I just applied the low settings and this is the end result. It's also with 50% resolution scale for some reason. Let's go back to 100% resolution scale, much sharper. And we get 40s, 30s. Gotta restart, of course, so yeah, let's do that. And here we have it. Oh boy, this save. Okay, yes. I forgot about this save. People are just fighting me because I killed a bunch of them already. Yes, yeah, okay, come on. Stop it. Is there an invisible guy there? What? Hello? What is going? Okay, no, this is not happening. All right, they got invisible guys. That is unfair. So if you want native 1440p with TSR, this is likely the way to do it with 30 plus FPS all of the time. Are you gonna drown? I don't want you to drown. That would be quite funny though. Anyway, let's go. Keep on going here. 50s, 40s. Yeah, not terrible. So it's gonna be stable at 30 plus all of the time, at least. Not bad. Come on. Was this guy the invisible one? Where's the invisible guy? Is he gone? Maybe it was loading this guy over here. I think so, right? Anyway. Let's go. Good stuff. We got this. You know what? Let's enable FSR quality here with the frame generation and see if I can do as well with the input lag. Oh, you again? No way. Wait. Did he get revived or something? Yeah, I guess so. Oh, come on. They're all reviving, I think. This is terrible. Oh no, it's the guy. Look at that. It is definitely the guy. Alright. Stop it, you bastards. Stop it. Okay. Anyway, on the low settings, as you can see, guys, 90s and 100s at times. That's not bad at all. It's quality FSR, lowest settings possible, of course, but it still looks a little bit sharper, I guess, or at least maybe as sharp as the TSR stuff, but with a little bit more ghosting once again. So, yeah, it's playable on GTX 1080 Ti. The end result is definitely playable, but you gotta do a lot of compromises if you want to make it smooth. So thanks very much for watching this video. Hope you guys enjoyed the Legend 1080 Ti playing the Legend Oblivion as well. No, I will resist arrest, obviously. I'm not gonna pay with my blood. I'm gonna pay it with your blood. Okay, the civilians are all after me as well. This is awful. I'm such a bad person here. Look at the blood on my sword. So much blood now. I'm gonna pay with the blood. Yes. Okay. Anyway, probably gonna die with this. Nope, not really. I'm like 1 HP or 0. Yeah, I just died. All right. I'll catch you in the next one. Love you all. Bye-bye.